And just relax, Mr. Pominski, and you will be addressing the chairperson. I will ask you questions. So the affidavit is from page 368. Affidavit, I, the undersigned Mark Vivian Pominski, you see that?
I do, Advocate and Chair.
Yeah. It runs up to page 404.
That's correct.
Yeah. I think there's a signature on page, at the bottom of page 403.
That's correct. That's my signature, sir.
That's your signature. The affidavit is dated 22nd December 2020. You confirm this to be your affidavit?
I do, sir.
You confirm the contents of the affidavit?
I do, sir.
Thank you. Chairperson, I beg leave to have the affidavit admitted as exhibit U39.1.
The affidavit of Mr. Mark Vivian Pominski, which starts at page 368, is admitted together with its annexures as exhibit U39.1.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Pominski has filed submitted a supplementary affidavit, Chairperson, which is yet to be incorporated in the bundle. If Mr. Pominski wishes to refer to it, we will have to make copies and have it admitted. Is it in the bundle already? What page? Page 6. Oh, they've already incorporated it. That's on page 685 of the same bundle, Chairperson. 685.
Yes, I've got it.
You have it, Mr. Pominski, as well?
I do, sir.
The affidavit runs up to page 697.
That's correct.
The signature at the bottom of page 696. Is that your signature, Mr. Pominski?
Yes, it is, sir.
The affidavit is dated 9 February 2021. You confirm this to be your affidavit?
I do, sir.
You confirm the contents?
I do, sir.
Thank you. Chairperson, I beg leave to have the affidavit admitted as exhibit U 39.2.
The affidavit of Mr. Mark Vivian Pominski, starting at page 685, is admitted together with its annexures as exhibit U 39.2.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Mr. Pominski, thank you for coming again. I understand you are not coming for the first time to give testimony before the Commission.
That is correct, sir.
That's good. Thank you. Just by way of information, Chairperson, Mr. Pominski has dealt extensively with the issues of suspension.
I think I've had too many witnesses appear before me now that I can't remember. But at the last count, I was told I had about 257 witnesses.
Wow.
So that's not a small number.
Mr. Pominski is one of those.
So thank you for coming back, Mr. Pominski.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Yes, just for information purposes, Mr. Pominski's affidavit, the main affidavit, deals more with the issues of suspension, Chairperson. On the issues of transactions, Mr. Pominski had recused himself. Yes, in the matter that came before the board, Mr. Pominski had recused himself. Is it the board?
Yes, sir. It came to the board. I recused myself from all coal and coal procurement at Eskom from that date forward. I was never involved in anything that would come coal or coal procurement, whether it was at board level or subcommittee level.
Yes.
B, I was never a board tender committee member either.
You were never?
A board tender committee member.
Okay, yes. But there is an issue regarding Mr. Paminsky's emails that were exchanged with one of the Gupta brothers. He will have to explain that part insofar as the transactions are concerned. And then he touches on the McKinsey matter insofar as it came to the board. To the extent that is dealt with in the affidavit, I think we will refer to what is in the affidavit.
You might wish to just speak up a little bit, Mr. Selega. You can speak up a little bit.
Oh, a little bit loud. Thank you, Chairperson. I will then proceed, Chairperson, to lead Mr. Paminsky's evidence.
Yes, do so.
Mr. Paminsky, the evidence already, just by way of background before the Commission, and I think you have already given this in your first appearance, that you were one of the new persons appointed with effect from the 11th of December 2014 on the board of Eskom. Correct? Just by way of background.
That is correct.
Yeah. Could you tell the chairperson what is your profession?
Chair, I'm a chartered accountant by profession. Yes, that's my profession.
Well, was this your first appointment to serve on the board of Eskom?
Yes, it's my first time to serve on a state-owned enterprises board.
Or on an SOE? I see. How were you appointed to serve on the board?
So, as I explained last time, I filled in from the newspaper, I filled in the advert. What transpired from there is we got receipt, acknowledging receipt of my application. Then I received on the 11th of December a letter to say you've been approved. I did not accept that appointment up front. There were certain conflicts I needed to disclose up front. Once those were disclosed, everybody was happy, and after the DPE, Department of Public Enterprise, and all the other members approved it, I accepted the position thereafter in January, sir.
Did you know any of the board members prior to your appointment?
Yes, I did.
Which ones did you know?
I knew Ms. Varoshni Naidu.
And how did you know her?
Socially.
Your voice drops down
Does it? Oh,
from time to time, Mr. Selega. Just
Sorry,
make an
Chair.
effort to speak up.
yes. And how do you know her?
Socially.
Yeah, just explain that.
Yes, her husband, Mr. Kubain Mudli, is a good friend of mine since 2001. So I've known her meeting Mr. Kubain Mudli.
Yeah. I asked her the same question yesterday, if you followed her testimony. And I asked her whether knowing you socially as a friend, does it mean you were a family friend? And she said yes.
I agree with that.
You agree with that?
I do.
Prior to your appointment to the board, can you roughly estimate how long did you know each other?
12, 13 years?
About 13 years.
Yes, about 13 years.
Did you know that she was also applying to serve on the Eskom board?
No, I did not.
No. By the way, you said the husband is a friend of yours.
That is correct.
Yeah. Do you know the type of business the husband is doing?
I've been listening over here to the commission. I'm just hearing what the story is.
Oh, but you didn't know?
No, not at all.
Yeah. What do you know him to be doing?
Kubain's a business developer. Mr. Kubain Budley, sorry, Chair, I should look here, is a business development manager or business development executive, where he puts deals together with certain parties.
Oh, I see. We understand that he's also friends with Mr. Salim Essa.
That is correct.
You also knew Mr. Salim Essa.
Yes, I did know him, Chair.
Did you know that he also knew Mr. Salim Essa?
Yes.
So the three of you knew each other as friends?
Yes, sir.
In business?
No business.
No, no business.
No business. I
Just-
did a business. Mr. Moodley left Eskom in 2011. We did a roof tiling business in 2012, which didn't work out, and we decided that we're not going to do business together. We'll remain our friendship. So we never did any business together.
Okay. Did your appointment to the Eskom board let me put it differently. When you were applying to serve on the board, did you have any conversation with Mr. Salim Essa about it?
No, I did not.
So he didn't know that you were going to serve on the Eskom board?
Correct.
And did you know any other board member apart from Ms. Viroshni Naidu?
Yes, I knew Mr. Khoza September. I would see him occasionally at the year-end functions at Telkom. And then I knew Mr. Robio Kamola also just from the year-end functions of Vodacom and the awards. So we used to go for awards at year-end to either Telkom or either Vodacom.
And those are the only three you knew?
That's correct.
Any of the Gupta brothers prior to your appointment to serve on the Eskom board?
Yes, I did know the Gupta brothers. Mr. Tony Gupta, as I told you last time, I went for a cup of tea. And then I joined the board of Oak Bay Resources and Energy Limited, the Johannesburg Stock Exchange company.
Yeah. Okay, you understand the reasons why these questions are being asked?
I do, sir.
You do, eh? Because the board members have been alleged to have had connections with the Guptas, and that as a result of those connections, they have facilitated transactions that benefited the Gupta entities when they were at Eskom. So that's the reason we're asking those questions. Please turn to page 372 of your affidavit.
Yes, sir.
Before you proceed, Mr. Selega, can I ask this question because I don't want to forget it?
Yes.
As I understand it, yourself, Mr. Moodley, and Mr. Salim Essa are all friends. Is that correct?
Yes, Chair, that's correct. But the way you describe it, you think we're very close the way I'm friendly with a very lot of people, Chair. He was just one of my many friends.
Yeah, no, that's fine. But I'm just saying you are friends with both of them.
That's correct, sir.
Yes. Evidence that has been led here has suggested that Mr. Salim Essa met with certain Eskom officials at Melrose Arch on the 10th of March. Of course, one of the Eskom officials who was alleged to have been present in those meetings is Mr. Koko, who has denied that there were such meetings. Did you know his offices at Melrose Arch, Mr. Salim Essa?
Yes, I did.
Yes. Would you be willing to point where those offices exactly used to be for the commission? Is that something you?
Yes, with pleasure.
I would be very grateful because one of the things we want to establish is whether the people who say they had meetings with him and Mr. Koko at Melrose Arch can point out that this is where we were at those meetings. And it's important to find somebody who can say, well, Mr. Salim Essa's offices were, this is where they are or they were in March 2015. Then at least we know that as a fact. And then we see whether they are pointing the right places or not.
Yes, sir, with absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much. You'll take that further, Mr. Selega.
Yes, indeed, Chairperson.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Pamensky, I had asked you to turn to page 372 of your affidavit, paragraph 8.5, which is in relation to your knowledge and interaction with the Gupta brothers. So it says there, as to the Guptas, I met Tony Gupta in about June 2014 when he invited me to his house to meet me. I thought the information was insufficient. It was lumping in the sense that we don't see how it came about that he had to invite you to his house, invite you to his house. When he invited me to his house to meet me, but did he know you before this in order to invite you?
As I said last time to you, no, he did not know me, Chair.
Yeah, but how did he, because the call can't come out of the blue, so how did you?
Chair, the calls do come out of the blue. I got a call out the blue. It was an SMS or a call, I can't remember, who said, come over for a cup of tea. That's how we do our business. People phone you, you go there. And you have a chat and you see what the discussions are about. That's what we do in business.
Yeah, no, we just want you to explain.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Chair. Can I just, for the benefit of the Commission and Mr. Seleka, and for my, just bring my own witnessing to line for 2 seconds?
Yeah.
Mr. Pamensky, you heard the Chair say that he's seen 1,257 witnesses, right? You were last here, when we were here last, it was sometime last year, probably, no? The year before. The examiner was different, it was Ms. Hoffmeyer. Please treat the questions as if the persons in this room have never heard the answers before.
Understood. Sorry for
Yes.
that.
Now, no one is suggesting that you haven't given the answers, but they won't know them. Okay.
Yes. No, thank you very much for that. Thank you very much.
Sorry, Chair. Sorry,
As I indicated, I couldn't remember that he had been to, he had given
I
evidence.
couldn't have let a good impression, Chair, if you didn't remember me. That must be the truth.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I mean, we just want to understand
Sorry,
how the call came about.
sorry. The call just came about roughly in June. I got a telephone call or a WhatsApp message. Would you like to come over and have a cup of tea and have a discussion? It was as simple as that, sir.
Yeah, no, you
So it was as simple as that, sir.
Yeah. Because, I mean, we thought maybe you had been referred to him, your name has been mentioned to him, that you are in this type of business, and that's why he called you to explore the possibility of what business they can do with you. You know, that sort of information one doesn't see here.
I hear you, Advocate Seleki. So it was a call, and we had a meeting. He explained to me a bit about the Sahara Group a lot. He explained to me more of his operations, where they're going, and he explained to me his mining operations. And then I explained to him Blue Label Telecoms, what we do and what we're doing, and we left it there. It was a very cool meeting.
So are you saying nothing came of that meeting?
No, so nothing came of that meeting. It was just a general chat. He explained to me what he does in their business, what he's doing. I said, this is what Blue Label does, and we just had a general chat, and that was it.
What does Blue Label, does Blue Label do?
Blue Label's involved in the telecommunications industry. It is involved in all facets of starting prepaid airtime, whether it's cellular, whether it's electricity, whether it's other services. It provides a variety of services to, it's been 5 years, excuse me. It offers a variety of electronic services to enable end users to obtain products much easier and much more accessible to anyone. So we were primarily in the cellular distribution game.
Yeah. Did you get a sense that he was calling you because of you being at Blue Labels and what Blue Labels was doing?
I didn't cross my mind, didn't think about that. He called me probably to have a meeting to see and also open up a relationship.
Yes. So that's June 2014. At that time, were you an employee of Blue Labels, or is this your company?
No, I was the Chief Operating Officer of Blue Label Telecoms at that time.
And then you do also say you met with Mr. Atul Gupta. But just before I go there, did you ask Mr. Tony, where did you get my name and number from?
No,
Why not?
didn't cross my mind. He sent me a message, got hold of me and wanted to speak. You know, I don't know where you got my number from. Didn't cross my mind.
About this time, 2014, the Guptas were well known from a media point of view. The landing at the military base, the wedding at Sun City, and their connections with the former president. Did you know about all that?
Chair asked me last time that question, and I did not see it like that at all, Chair. You know, maybe it was a political fight. They were not near as toxic as they are today. You know, when I worked at ORE, the listed company, you know, we had KPMG, we had the big auditors. There was nothing wrong. It was run very well by management. It was very impressive from our perspective. Just to maybe give you a little concept, ORE is listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, and we meet quarterly. So we follow very similar to how the Eskom works. You follow your board meetings and you attend quarterly, and you have all the different committees.
Yeah, but, okay.
So I just wanted to say I've never seen anything untoward at all.
Yes, no, you will deal with that when you become a board member. I think you will deal with that at that stage. But I'm just talking from an outsider point of view, hearing media reports. This is what's happening, the Guptas, and their involvement with the former president, the deals they're making with government and so on. I'm asking whether you were aware of that.
No, Chair, well, no, I was aware they had relationships, but it also seemed to me that it looked like a lot of fighting to do with like the media people, because they, in my mind, own TNA, and all this coming across was just like a media fight. But I didn't see anything of that, Chair, not at all.
Then you do say also that you came to know Mr. Atul Gupta. And let me just read out from your affidavit.
Sorry, sir?
I'll just read out from your affidavit. Again, you say 8.5.2, Atul Gupta called me in late August or early September 2014 to invite me to sit on the board of Oak Bay Resources and Energy Limited in anticipation of its listing on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. So, okay, I'll pause there again because I'm trying to think, like in the first, in the preceding paragraph, why does it look like a call out of nowhere? Or is this one different?
No, Chair, as I said to you on that 12th, he explained to me some of these companies, and they've got mining and everything. And then Mr. Atul Gupta phoned me afterwards to ask me to come and have a meeting with him, and to say that he's going to go and they're looking to list Oak Bay Resources and Energy Limited. And in order to list these companies, you need to have 3 independent, non-executive directors.
Yes. So, yeah.
I had sorry.
Yeah, you will explain. Are you saying their call was a sequel to the meeting you had in June 2014 with Mr. Tony Gupta?
No.
It had no relation at all with...
No.
So, but then explain to us, how is he calling you out? It seems to be out of nowhere.
Yes, he's calling me out of nowhere. This is how you get invited to boards. People call you up. They come, they know you got expertise and skills, and they call you up. So it was like...
Yes, my point is, how do they know you?
Oh, I don't know, Chair. That I can't answer you. I don't know. Sorry. Sorry, Advocate. I don't know how they know about me. I'll just give you a story. I don't want to mention names, but You know, when I joined the board of ORE, there were 2 members of the board, and what they actually said to me was,
Which board now?
Board of ORE. I use the word Oak Bay Resources Energy. I rather use the word ORE, Chair, because I've been dealing with this for 4 years. People keep on getting confused with the Oak Bay Investments, which is the Gupta ship, and on this side. So I created another affidavit to try explain and show you my role and the group. Sorry, I lost my chain of thought. What was your question? Sorry.
Yes, I think you were dealing with the question of receiving this call out of the blue, but I think you wanted to share some.
Oh, so those board members told me that they joined the board because I was there. I did not realize what a good name I had in the market at that point of time. I really didn't.
You didn't what?
Know what a good name I had in the market at that point of time. You know, to hear from fellow board members that considered coming on because I was coming on, which is quite impressive.
Yeah, just direct face the chairperson as you answer.
Okay, I think let's just get the final answer on, I think, what Mr. Selega is trying to establish. I think what he's suggesting is this a situation where you were called and invited to join the board without really having had any interactions worth mentioning with them, you know, without really having had any prior interactions of any substance?
That is correct, Chair.
Yes.
You know, as I said last time, he called me. We sat, we had a meeting. You asked me afterward, I had to consider it. I had to go and speak to my employer as well. I'm employed, and I had to consider my options. I then got a subsequent call from the company secretary, and I duly accepted the appointment. So we never had any discussions before.
Okay.
Okay, that's all right. So Mr. Atul Gupta also calls you, and the conversation leads to you becoming a lead independent non-executive director in ORE, Oak Bay Resources.
Correct.
As opposed to Oak Bay Investments. Is this Oak Bay Resources the very company that was assisting Tegeta to acquire OCH?
No. Oak Bay Resources and Energy had nothing to do with the Optimum Coal transaction.
Yeah, but we know that Oak Bay had made an offer through Bowman Gilfillan to the business rescue practitioners. So I'm asking you, which Oak Bay is this? Is that Oak Bay Resources or Oak Bay Investments?
Chair, I'm not sure. It was definitely not Oak Bay Resources. I do not know which entity in the Gupta group made that offer, but I know it was not Oak Bay Resources and Energy Limited.
So then you came to know the other Gupta brothers as a result. Is that Varun Gupta?
Yes, Mr. Varun Gupta was the executive director on the board of ORE and Shiva.
And you also came to know Mr. AJ Gupta?
Yes, sir. He was in the building when you used to have meetings there.
Right. Now, I'm going to go a little bit out of sequence because of this issue we are talking about now. If ORE was not a company involved with Tegeta for the acquisition of OCH, when the matter came to the board as a form of a submission for prepayment of 1.6 billion rand to Tegeta in December 2015, why did you recuse yourself?
If I may, Chair?
Yes.
Very, very important. Roughly October, November, ORE and Tegeta staff suggested to the ORE board that we purchase the Brackfontein coal mine in exchange for shares. So that was on the 20th of November. I gave a commitment. I had to explain to the board that I'm not conflicted. The conflict was very remote. The Brackfontein contract had already been awarded by Eskom. At that time, I thought it was done by a board tender committee because they deal with coal procurement. But we learned it was management who signed that on the 10th of September. Secondly, I don't sit on board tender committee. I won't be involved in any coal procurement issues, so there'll be a very limited occasion where I would be at the expense of the other. Therefore, it was a manageable conflict. What I committed to the ORE board, that I would recuse myself on anything that is related to coal or coal procurement.
I think, yeah, just keep a distance from the mic a little bit, yeah.
Sorry, so I committed to the ORE board that anything that came up that coal or coal procurement, I would recuse myself. In July, when I first came up, on the 8th of December, I recused myself straight away from all coal and coal procurement going forward and anything to do within the Eskom environment. I never received board packs, I never received anything, nor could I influence anything within those environments.
Yeah, so that matter, it's a submission prepared within Eskom by Eskom, certain Eskom executives. They prepared a submission for a prepayment decision to be made by the board, 1.68 billion by way of a round robin, to be made at 12 noon, 9 December 2015. You received a communication by email from Ms. Suzanne Daniels on the 8th of December. You would have received it as well. And you are saying as a result of receipt of that email, not as a result, after receipt of the email, you recuse yourself because of the matter that had to be decided.
No, sir.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm understanding your question.
Okay.
But when the email arrived on the
Yes.
8th,
Yes.
it said the pre-purchases of Optimum coal, and it was coal related, so immediately I sent an email to the company secretary and to the chairman, because that's the Eskom conflict rules, you need to inform them, and I asked them, please, I'm potentially conflicted, I'd like to be recused from all items. So my recusal was based on the ORE board meeting that I'll not get involved in anything to do with coal or coal procurement at Eskom.
Yes. Have you attached your emails to Mr. Atul Gupta, to your affidavit?
Yes, to my affidavit. I have the supplementary affidavit.
Or they are in the supplementary?
Yes, sir.
Those emails?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can we go there?
Yes, sure we can. Chair, just before Advocate Seleka starts, we put a supplementary affidavit in just to explain my role and to give context to where these mails are coming from. So I think it's important that maybe, with your permission, I can maybe explain the Oak Bay investments or the whole group to you so you get a little bit of a quick sight. It won't take me more than 5 minutes, and I think it will put in a little perspective to you.
Yes, okay. Let's give you that chance.
Thank you, Chair. If I may ask, could you go to page 700 in the Eskom bundle?
Yes, I've got that.
So, Chair, on your right-hand side is Oak Bay
When you
Investments.
said Eskom bundle, you mean the bundle we are currently using. I think you do, because I think the page you have in front of you is the page I have.
Yes, it
Yeah.
would look, yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
So, Chair, on the right-hand side is Oak Bay Investments and all its groups. One of them we put down there is obviously Tegeta and Optimum. On the right-hand side, I've never been a director of any of those companies, nor have I had any insight into any of the affairs of those companies. The role I played is on the left. So, Oak Bay Resources and Energy Limited, and it owned one asset, Shiva.
I'm sorry. This shows this is the position as at when. It couldn't be as in 2014.
No, Chair, I would put this as, call it 2016, sometime in the year 2016.
Okay.
Perfect. So, Chair, as you know, to list on a Johannesburg Stock Exchange, you need 3 independent non-exec directors, as well as a financial director. So, we listed on the 28th of November 2014, ORE listed. Its only asset that it had was Shiva Uranium. That changed, Chair, on the 29th of February when it purchased the Brackfontein asset in exchange for shares. So those are the only assets that are there. So that is the Oak Bay group of companies. I sat on the left. I had nothing to do with any of the companies on the right. I've had no insight, no nothing. It's in the affidavit. So I think that just gives you a bit of clarity that I would have not seen what was going on in Taketa, Optimum, or the Oak Bay Investments and their group of companies.
Yes. Oak Bay Investment was the majority shareholder in ORE.
Yes, it was an 80% shareholder and 20% was owned by public shareholders, also including the RDC.
And Shiva was ORE was the majority shareholder in Shiva.
That is correct, sir.
Yes, and Taketa was a minority shareholder in Shiva, is that right?
That is correct. It became a minority shareholder. We have no duties, we have no relationships with shareholders, there's no obligations to shareholders, so they became purely a shareholder. They had no board representation or no board seats, but they became a 19% shareholder in Shiva.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Selega?
So in context with that email,
so
can I start?
Yeah, but I
sir.
want us to go to the email.
Yes, I'm going to go to the emails now, so I'm just putting in context.
Yes.
Now, Chair, roughly in October, November, Nazim Hawa is the CEO...
That's 2016.
No, this would be in October, November 2015.
Okay.
Yes.
He approached the ORE board and he wanted to make a group investment committee which would monitor investments, corporate governance, and all those elements. I was very keen to serve on that board. That's my expertise. So the emails are going to bring into context that Oak Bay Investments was creating an investment committee for the Oak Bay Investments Group, which ultimately did not happen. It fizzled away in end of January, and with due respect, thank God. Thank God. Anyway.
Why do you say that?
Because, Chair, we have no idea what's going on, and what's coming out of this commission is, I just rather not comment, you know, because I'm sure if I was sitting on that investment committee, these things also would have been hidden from us completely, because you don't know what goes on behind the scenes, you know, so it just would have put me in, while we're sitting here and discussing this, I'm putting context into my emails, and I'm not involved in the Gupta affairs or their business, and that's what I'm here to explain to you. I've lived with these emails for years, so I'm happy to explain, sorry. I hope I'm not talking too much, Abid.
Oh, are you giving me permission to stop you? Are you?
Your counsel's laughs gives me an impression what he thinks about that.
My apologies. So, in connection with those emails, it's in context of the Oak Bay Investments committee that was going to be formed.
So, Mr. Nazim Hawa, you also knew him. You and him knew each other.
From a professional relationship, he was the chief executive of the holding company.
Oh, of
Oak Bay Investments.
Investments. Oh, that's how you came to know. Yeah, but let's go to the emails then.
Yes, sir.
Is that the email, the first? I see one on page 717.
That is correct, Chair.
So the email, tell us how we should read them. Where do we start?
Chair, I think you would start on Eskom 717, and it could say, "Hi, Chair." Above that seems to be the Gupta leaks that have gone out. It seems to show that Mr. Atul
Okay.
Gupta then forwarded this on to others.
Okay. So what we have then, if I may identify the email. It's an email from yourself, Mark Paminsky. The email address is there, markpam2@mac.com, I beg your pardon. It's dated November 22 November 2015 at 7:40 p.m. It's an email to Atul at ann7.com.
And CC Varun Gupta,
Yeah, that's right.
because these are in relation to our...
Yeah. No, I'm pausing because I remember ANN7 being mentioned yesterday, that Ms. Naidu said she had attended, I think it was a breakfast or whatever function it was with her husband, which was an ANN7 occasion, where Mr. Salim Essa was present. Have you been invited to such occasions?
I have been invited to certain occasions, but I can't recall that one.
Yeah.
It was the SATI Awards that you get invited to, that big function that they have for the year-end awards.
Yeah. Were you invited to the Sun City wedding? Sun City wedding, were you invited?
Yes, I was.
Yeah, but that's before 2014.
Oh, no, sorry, Chair, I wasn't invited, Chair. Blue Label Telecoms was invited to attend the wedding.
Who was invited?
Blue Label Telecoms.
Yeah.
Don't know why the invitation came. I took the invitation.
You took
and
it?
I took it.
Yeah?
And I went, because I'm the single one, everyone else is married. I took it and went to Sun City for the 2 days. I never met the Guptas or anything there, but I went.
That was 2013, isn't it?
That is correct.
Yeah, that's before 2014.
Yes. I've never met them. I was invited to the wedding and I went to the, I wasn't, Blue Label was invited to the wedding and I took the invitation.
Oh.
So are you suggesting they just sent an invitation to a company that they had nothing to do
Yes.
with, that they didn't know anything about?
Yes, it came. It was like, okay, well, they don't know us. Let's go. I'll go anyway. It's a free weekend. I don't know if they should hear that, yes.
Did the CEO agree to you taking the invitation?
Yes,
The CEO?
yes.
Not him, but you.
No, they all buried, as I said to you, so they didn't want to go. I was happy to go because it was a free weekend.
Oh. Yeah, no, the wedding was 2013.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Mr. Paminsky, are you saying you went to that wedding and never met the Guptas?
Exactly what I'm saying, Chair. It's exactly what I'm telling you. I never met the Guptas there. There were hundreds of people.
Did you bring a present for the couple that was getting married?
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
Yeah, well, it just sounds strange that they would send an invitation to a company that never had any interactions with.
Chair, from our mindset, we saw the invitation come in. It was a massive box. I said, well, let's see what this is. Opened it. It's a Gupta wedding. It's for a
And
weekend.
you said, CEO, I will go, don't go.
No. We, the CEOs, sit in the same office at Blue Label together. So it came in. So, it's a free weekend. I said, I'll go. They said, fine. Simple as that, Chair. There was nothing to it.
Yes, but I think what the chair is saying is, it's surprising that they would send an invite to a company they don't know, that has nothing to do with them.
Correct.
Yeah, so we're trying to establish what is the linkage, what is the connection.
Chair, I can't answer you on that. I was invited. Well, Blue Label was invited and was happy to go.
Because some of us were not invited and we have nothing to do with the Guptas. I mean, he could have also come to Chambers and say, hey, Mr. Johnny Blow, you're invited.
Chair, I can't answer you that. I don't know what they said. Blue was invited and I attended to it, and I did not meet them there, Chair.
Okay.
Mr. Seleka, you don't know that I wasn't invited. Yeah. But I'll place it on record that Johnny Blow was not invited to the wedding.
I'm sorry, just repeat what you have just said.
Mr. Seleka, I'm doing this in jest. Mr. Seleka said, but I wasn't invited, right? And out of the blue, I mean, you could have got a message to Mr. Johnny Blow. He mentioned me saying, you're invited, that never happened. I'm confirming that it never happened. But, Chair, but can I just say this? And I wonder whether Mr. Pamensky shouldn't be out for this.
Well, you would know better in terms of what you want to say,
Well,
so we can excuse him for 2 minutes if you...
But perhaps I'll address you on something like this on the end and he can leave. I just wanted to say, Chair, that, and I don't want to forestall anything on behalf of Mr. Moleko yourself, but I think you'll find that and this is a supposition on my part because I don't have the evidence, but I don't know how many people were invited to that wedding. I can't recall the number. But this is it seemed to me to be a company, at least in those stages, that would reach out to anybody with whom it might have influence anyway, whether they dealt with them or not, but I'm going to put it no higher than that. In other words, for the proposition to be correct, one would have to look at all the invitees and see whether or not they had links or not. That's all I'm saying on the probabilities. That's all I'm saying. I don't know about it. I'm just saying it might be an avenue of inquiry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Let's continue, Mr. Slager.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Pamensky, let's go to the email.
Yes, sir.
The email then reads, meeting of even date. Hi, Chair. So you are addressing Mr. Atul Gupta.
That is correct.
You say, thank you for the conversation today. I will action all the items and ensure that they are completed. I will send an email to Terry regarding the lead independent role, and that you as chairman have decided to take a more conservative approach and would like to appoint him. This is the correct business decision for ORE. We will have the Shiva Uranium board sorted out by Tuesday. This will allow us to vote on the Tegeta acquisition with no related parties. I would like to conclude this approval urgently so ORE and Shiva Uranium can implement the transaction. In terms of investment committee, I am available to start straight away. As I'm at the tail end of the main acquisition of Optimum Coal, please ensure that a condition precedent is that the 2 billion rand claim from Eskom is withdrawn or it becomes the seller's problem. I'm happy to get involved to assist with this acquisition and monthly monitoring/analyzing of all investments from today. I can meet anyone you require. If you need me in India or Dubai to discuss, I'll meet you there. Travel safe and look forward to seeing you soon. Once again, thank you for today. Now, it's that paragraph, the penultimate paragraph, we would like to concentrate on for now. In that penultimate paragraph, could you explain to the chairperson what are you talking about there with Mr. Atul Gupta?
Sorry, Mr. Seleka, I'm not sure what you're asking. Are you asking me for the paragraph or you're asking me for the sentence?
No, the penultimate paragraph. The second.
Travel safe.
The one in terms of investments.
Oh, yes, Chair.
Yes.
Yes, Chair. As I said to you, Mr. Nazim Howie approached us in October, November. As I said to you, so he approached us, that's the investment committee. As I said to you, on the 20th of November, ORE agreed to purchase the assets in exchange for shares in Tegeta, that was the Brakfontein contract. Mr. Gupta was the chairman of ORE, he did not attend the meeting. I then met him 2 days afterwards, on the 20th, to appraise him of those events. The first event, as you can see, is Mr. Terry would be lead independent. I felt that the lead independent of ORE should have no relationship with Eskom because I was the lead independent. In terms of the Shiva transaction, the Shiva board had to approve. Everybody was related party on the Shiva board, so I had to go onto the Shiva board. So those are the two elements. Now, in terms of the investment committee, that was the investment committee to come up. That's why I stated that point. Second of all, I'm coming to the tail end. Oh, sorry, let me just jump back. So I met Mr. Gupta on the 22nd. And Mr. Gupta, I filled him in on those 2 points, and he said to me at that meeting for the first time that they're looking to bar OCM and the teams are in due diligence. I said to Mr. Gupta, is it ORE? Because I did not see it on the agenda. And he said to me, no, it is not ORE, and that was the end of our discussion. Hence, after our meeting, I then wrote the email on what our discussions are.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Pamensky. Which Mr. Gupta told you that they're buying OCH?
OCM, he said Optimum Coal Mine,
Okay, yes.
Mr. Atul Gupta.
Oh, did he tell you that at the meeting?
He told me at the meeting of the 20th,
Oh, the
22nd, when I went to fill him in, he didn't come to the board meeting. I needed to appraise him of what went on. It's normal for a chairman, I chaired the meeting, so it's normal for a chair to go and fill in the chairman if he did not attend that meeting. And it was at that meeting, he first said to me, Mr. Atul Gupta, that they're looking to buy Optimum Coal and the teams are in due diligence.
Okay, so when he says we are looking to buy OCM, that is on the 22nd of November 2015, was he referring to ORE?
No, I asked him specifically when he said we, I said, Mr. Gupta, it was not on the agenda of ORE. And he said to me, it's not ORE who's purchasing it. That was the end of our conversation.
Yes, but, well, I wonder whether it makes a difference whether it's ORE or OI, Oak Bay Investments or Oak Bay Resources, because they are all interrelated companies.
First of all, they're not interrelated companies. They're standalone arm-length companies.
Yeah.
ORE is listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange.
Yeah.
All our transactions are at arm's length with any company, even if it's a related party. So these are arm's length transactions.
Yeah.
Number one. The difference is, Chair, if it was ORE, the difference is I sit on the board of ORE, and there will be different JSC and implications on that by me sitting on the board of ORE.
Yes, but they are related entities, as you say, and you find the same people or some of the same people in the same entities. The Gupta brothers would have been in the same entities.
I can't comment on that, but the chairman was in ORE.
Yes.
And Mr. Varun Gupta was in ORE. I'm not sure the other vehicles or companies that they were in, but they were definitely directors of other companies. I'm not sure which ones.
Okay, so you are not given a direct answer as to which of the Gupta entities has decided to purchase OCM.
No, he just said to me, it's not, I asked him specifically, is it ORE because it wasn't on the agenda? And he said, no, it was not ORE.
Yeah, okay. So let's go back to the email, that paragraph. In terms of investment committee, I'm available to start straight away. Which investment committee is that?
Chair, this is one I explained to you when Nazim Hawa suggested that we form this investment committee for the holding company to oversee, invest and monitor investments governance. So this would be that committee because it's specifically an acquisition.
Yes.
So,
and Nazim Hawa is did you say he's the CEO of Oak Bay Investments?
that is correct.
Yes. So that would have meant that you are dealing with people at both in Oak Bay Investment level and Oak Bay Resources level.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. Then the paragraph continues. As I am at the tail end of the main acquisition of Optimum Coal, please ensure that a condition precedent is that the 2 billion rand claim from Eskom is withdrawn or it becomes the seller's problem. What are you talking about there?
Chair, first of all, I'm available to start straight away. means that I've not been involved in this transaction, Chair, number one, because it's the first time I've heard it, and I'm coming in at the tail end. So I'm not involved in this. In preparing for the commission, on the 11th of November, which is 12 days before, I picked up from Glencore's affidavits that Oak Bay Investments had signed a term sheet already with Optimum Coal, if I'm correct. So and they also, I think, agreed the terms of the penalty. So I'm just not involved. So my comment there is a very simple comment. In terms of the condition precedent, I don't believe that the purchaser should acquire the entity with that penalty. In other words, to not detract from the value is that the purchaser shall ensure, Chair, that there's a condition precedent for this deal to go through, that the fine is either withdrawn, and my understanding withdrawn, I'll get to in a minute, otherwise it becomes their problem. So in terms of the transaction, I wanted the penalty to come to an end in terms of this transaction. So I suggested that the seller procure either the settlement of the fine or it takes on it within its balance sheet, purely to ensure that you do not detract from the underlying entity of OCM. So those were my words.
Okay. Let's try to contextualize this so that we understand exactly what you're talking about. I think what I wish to say to you is this. Just give the chairperson the facts as they happened. And I will put this to you so that I see whether we're talking the same thing in this regard. Eskom has a contract with OCM. It's a coal supply contract. This contract, at least with OCM, dates back to 2012, but it's a contract that has been ongoing for quite some time. Glencore took over from the previous owner. In the process of OCM having this contract with Eskom, and particularly in 2014, 2015, there is an issue about penalties that Eskom raises with OCM in the region of 2.1 billion rand, 2.17 billion rand. And the penalties are said to arise from OCM not supplying coal which is up to spec. Is that the penalty you're talking about here?
That is the penalty I'm talking about, Chair.
Yes. Okay. Now that penalty was sought to be enforced against OCM by Mr. Malefe and Mr. Koko acting on behalf of Eskom. I add that so that it doesn't get to be interpreted as being in their personal capacity. So the penalty is sought to be enforced against OCM, and particularly at a time when Oak Bay Tegeta is also, on the other hand, seeking to acquire OCM. It was clear on the part of Eskom that whoever acquires OCM will take that liability as well. So when you write here, in November 2015, you would have known about that liability or the penalty. You would have known that Eskom's position is that whoever acquires OCM is the one taking that liability. And-
Sorry, can I correct you there?
Yes, please.
As you know, the Optimum coal transaction never came to the board. What I did know was that in the press that I read in August, that Eskom was fanatical, that Mr. Molefe said that we will collect this fine, because why can we not collect from Soweto or the municipality? So that's all I knew from the press, Chair. I had no idea of your second point where you're saying that they were enforcing it. I wouldn't know that. My mindset was at the time that Eskom was very vocal that it will collect its money.
Oh, so you knew from the press, from the media, that Eskom's view was that whoever takes over OCM will be also taking that liability?
No. What I'm saying was Eskom was very vocal in August when the first time I picked up that there was this penalty and this arbitration came out in the press. And that's when I asked Mr. Molefe what's going on. So I knew at that time in Eskom's head, we are going to collect this money because Brian said we're going to collect this money. I knew nothing about new purchases or anything. All I knew on that date that Eskom was very vocal that it will collect its money.
Okay, now I understand what you're saying. Whether you came to know through Mr. Molefe or you came to know through what you say didn't happen, a discussion in the board, it's neither here nor there. I think the fact of the matter is when you write this email in November, you had knowledge of Eskom's position that whoever acquires OCM will also be liable for that penalty.
That is correct.
Yes. So
Sorry.
when you're writing
Sorry,
then,
Chair, Mr. Pamensky's not, Mr. Seleka has put a compound question twice, that he knew about the claim and that he knew about who would assume liability for the claim as between buyer and seller. It's a compound question being put twice, and Mr. Pamensky's now given answers that it seems to me he doesn't understand the question. Can they be put separately, please?
Okay, Mr. Seleka, I think the request is if you could put the questions separately because you may have put them both at the same time.
yeah, no, if I understand my learned friend, I was saying whether he came to know it from Mr. Molefe or whether he came to know it through board discussions, which he says it didn't happen. Is that the one?
Sorry, the line of questioning started that he knew about the fact that there was a penalty that Eskom was claiming. In the same question, when you started this, you said, and he knew that it would be the responsibility of the buyer. In other words, who the acquiring entity was, namely Oak Bay Investment. Whoever was buying would assume the penalty. You put that to him as a compound proposition. They're not the same question. He says he knew about the transaction from the press. Whether he knew about the fact that the purchaser, that had already been agreed in Eskom that the purchaser must assume liability is a separate question that he must answer separately.
Maybe you might just want to put them one by one before you put the final proposition.
Yes.
You may have been saying he knew about this and that because you know from his evidence that he does, but you might wish to confirm to say you knew this or did you not know this, did you not know that, and then maybe once those have been confirmed one way or another, you might wish to put the proposition that you wanted to put.
Yes. Yes, no, Chair, I thought it was quite clear to the witness. So
Maybe it was. I may have missed something, but
yeah.
yeah.
So,
Maybe what you can do is repeat what you said to him, and repeat what his answer was, and then let's take it from there.
yes.
Yeah.
Because I think on the one hand, Mr. Pamensky, well, my question really was that prior to writing this email, you would have known Eskom's position that whoever acquires OCM will also take up their responsibility in respect of the penalties.
Let's get him to confirm whether he knew
No,
that.
I don't agree with that, Chair.
No, I'm just
Okay.
asking a question.
Oh, no, I had no idea what Eskom's position was in connection with a transaction that is going to purchase that entity. I don't know. What I knew Eskom's position was from the press that they wanted to collect their money. So Eskom was adamant in its head that it wanted to collect its money. That's what I knew.
Okay, so what you're saying then is you didn't know that Eskom's position was whoever takes OCM will also be responsible for the liability. That one you didn't know.
That's correct.
Okay. So did you know about Pembani's offer to acquire OCM?
No, I did not.
You did not know that. So you did not know that the collapse of that offer was on the very basis that Pembani was told, if you take OCM, you also take the responsibility for the 2.1 billion. You didn't know that.
No, I'm not involved in that transaction, don't know.
Yeah. So, if you didn't know that, help us understand your sentence here, where you write to Mr. Atul Gupta and you say, please ensure that a condition precedent is that the 2 billion rand claim from Eskom is withdrawn, or it becomes the seller's problem. Let us understand, why do you write along those lines?
Chair, maybe the word withdrawn is the correct thing. My attorneys tell me that the word withdrawn means for nil value. It was never my intention at all. My intention was very simple, that the seller should either take on the liability and settle it, or it becomes their problem. In other words, it comes on their balance sheet. So in other words, the acquiring entity should not take on this liability as it would detract from the value. As a simple term to tell you, if I'm purchasing your house, there's a buyer and a seller. The seller has the relationship with the bank. It doesn't make sense to purchase that house with the liability, so the seller must go and settle or procure that liability is paid. So that was the context of my exact meaning here, sir. And just to reiterate, sir, I just have to say this. It was impossible that my mind could have had the mindset that it could have been for nil value. First of all, it didn't cross my mind. Secondly, Eskom was extremely vocal. When Mr. Brian Molefi's newspaper articles out was there that they were always going to collect. So it never crossed my mind. And I always knew that Glencore had a guarantee. So Eskom had a guarantee from Glencore, and they were always going to get paid. Again, who was going to bear the risk? I said that should be the seller, should bear that risk, Chair.
Okay.
So, Mr. Seleka, so in order for this transaction to occur, I'm saying to the purchaser, do not buy this asset unless the seller resolves those two issues. And if he doesn't, don't take on this transaction, because I don't believe it takes the underlying value. But also, Chair, it's a very high-level comment. You know, he told me I'm just giving a comment here, and you can see it's all dealt with before. So it's not intended for that meaning at all. And I'm not involved in Eskom that does board tender committees, that does penalties and all that, fine. I sat here last time and I heard you guys. I left Eskom in November 2016. This penalty was resolved post my event, just for the record. So I had no involvement, no nothing. Sorry.
No, that's all right. Okay, I have a difficulty if you say your attorneys have told you what withdrawn mean there. Because when you were writing the email, I don't suppose for one moment that they would have been there with you, helping you to draft this email.
That is correct, Mr. Seleki. My mind, withdrawal does not mean for nil value in my mind. Withdrawal means that they take on that liability.
Yeah, no, I'm not fighting with you.
Oh, sorry.
I'm not fighting.
Sorry.
Well,
I'm just pointing out.
Maybe let me ask this question. Isn't the position that when you wrote this letter, your knowledge as far as this 2 billion rand claim by Eskom was concerned was that Eskom wanted the OCM to pay this amount, and therefore it's reasonable to think that if there are negotiations for sale, this issue would arise, namely the 2 billion rand claim. And therefore, you were concerned that the purchaser, as far as you are concerned, should, under no circumstances, enter into a deal where this 2 billion rand would be the purchaser's problem.
That is correct, Chair. Normal like a house bond, Chair, if you go and buy a house and you purchase it, you tell the homeowner, you go and settle your liability. I don't want to take on your house with that liability. It doesn't make financial sense to me.
Mr. Selega?
Yeah. Did you talk along those lines with your board members, your fellow board members at Eskom?
No, Chair, this was a commercial transaction between the buyer and seller. This had nothing to do with Eskom, my comment in that sense. And no, I never discussed any of my conversations. I never shared anything out of the boardroom, so I never discussed any of these comments with any of my Eskom board members.
Yeah, no, sure.
Can I follow up with, please don't forget
Okay.
your question, Mr. Selega.
Yes.
How had you acquired the knowledge of this claim on by Eskom?
Chair, I gained my knowledge roughly in August 2015 when it was in the press. You know, there was all this press going around that Glencore and Eskom are having this fight. So that's when I first learned. What occurred after that was there was a board meeting set in September where I wanted to ask Mr. Molefe, and we got an email to say it's cancelled. And in my email back to them, say thank you, but I've been reading in the press with Glencore and all of that, have we got a problem with our coal? Is everything okay? So I gained my knowledge from there. That's where I gained my knowledge from. It was not from Eskom. It was never discussed with us as Eskom, as you hear. So that's where I gained my knowledge from, Chair.
Is that answer to the fact that you gained your knowledge partly from the press, but also partly from your interaction with Mr. Molefe by email?
No one responded to my email, Chair. So I'll tell you, if you want me to tell you the story, what happened?
No, not necessarily.
It's in the pack.
So is the position that you acquired the knowledge through the press, full stop?
That's correct.
Okay. Mr. Slayer.
No, but you did say also you spoke to Mr. Molefe.
Yes, I did.
Yes. And he also told you. What did he say to you?
No, Mr. Molefe informed me
Yes.
that this deal was not in the best interest of Eskom.
Yes.
And it was unaffordable. And from that perspective, they could not agree on price or quantity. That's all he told me. The second thing he told me, I said, are we all okay for coal? He said, we're all okay for coal. I said to him, I see this penalty. He says, yes, I raised the penalty because I would prescribe. And that was our conversation.
Yes. Yes, in your answer, I hope the question still has the force it requires. You were saying the transaction has nothing to do with Eskom. You didn't discuss this matter with your fellow board members. But the penalty had everything to do with Eskom. It was an Eskom matter. And it is in that context that I'm asking you whether this issue of the penalty, which you are raising here, did you discuss it with your fellow board members, or even the executive, I might add, in Eskom, like Brian Molefe, Mr. Brian Molefe, to say, look, this is my view on this matter?
No, I did not.
Well,
Sorry, Mr. Lecker, why would I've discussed my view with the management of Eskom? This was a transaction between a buyer and seller, and I'm not telling Eskom to withdraw his claim. I'm telling that the buyer must pay Eskom and resolve it. End of story. I'm missing your question maybe, sir.
no, I'm only asking you to explain to the chairperson whether the same conversation you have here,
No.
you would have had within Eskom.
No.
Yeah, because, I mean, at that stage, Eskom is adamant that OCM must pay this penalty, this 2.17 billion penalty. And you say you had left. What happens ultimately with this penalty is that it gets to be recalculated on the basis that there were errors in the calculation. Partly errors in the calculation, but also that there's a period which had already been paid, so we are not going to charge for that period. And it gets whittled down to what becomes a payable amount, some 255 million rand. Even of that 255 million rand, Tigeta doesn't pay the full amount. It pays only 171 million rand, and then it goes into business rescue. But when you read the affidavit from CDH, the attorneys for Eskom at the time, they had already given Eskom advice that you will face challenges in your claim. Did you know about that?
No, completely unaware, Chair. Nothing to do with Optimum Coal or any coal after I recused myself came forward to me. So I was not involved. I recused myself and everything. I left in December 2016. I understand that in December from Ms. Daniel's affidavit is when she started engaging in the arbitration and all of that. I was not involved. I'd left Eskom. And again, it never came to me.
Okay, so just finally on your use of the word, please ensure a condition precedent that the claim is withdrawn. Just from your own explanation, what did you mean by that?
Clearly, that a condition precedent must be, in terms of that fine, it is settled. So in other words, the Glencore, which is the seller entity, must settle their claim. If it does not settle their claim, it must take it on its balance sheet.
Yeah, but the settle is the subsequent sentence. There's first withdrawn, so I want your explanation of
Yes,
withdrawn.
2 billion rand penalty must be settled. If it's not settled, then they must take it on their balance sheet. So if Glencore doesn't settle Eskom, their money, or goes to arbitration, I said the context, withdrawal.
Yeah.
So go back. Withdrawal is said to me in the context of an arbitration, Chair. I'm not a lawyer, Chair, but in terms of an arbitration, in my mind, it's settled, dismissed, or closed out or resolved. So as I said was, in terms of this arbitration, we all knew was the seller, who's a party to the arbitration, he's the person, he must go and settle the matter with arbitration. What does settle mean? I don't know, get to a deal, talk about it, they're involved. I don't know what it involves, but it was just a very high level contact that they must go and settle this matter in arbitration, or should I say, resolve this matter, and then.
Okay. Okay, I understand your explanation there insofar as it relates to, or it becomes the seller's problem. Well, let me say to you, so that you can comment then on my proposition to you. So this other one says it becomes the seller's problem. So the seller will have the problem, whatever they do, either settlement or pay it, because that's what it means there. But when you say withdrawn, only Eskom can withdraw that claim. The seller can't, because it's a liability of the seller is the debtor. And this is what I want to say to you, so you can comment on it. What you mean there is that Eskom should withdraw that claim so that even the buyer is not liable for that liability. Is that a fair comment?
That is definitely not what my mindset was thinking at all. First of all, I'm not involved in these things. I can't influence. My comment was very simple, that the seller must settle this liability. I never ever suggested that Eskom should withdraw the settlement. It never crossed my mind. Eskom is not a party to this negotiation. And I don't have the authority to speak on Eskom's behalf, and I don't get involved in that, Chair. It sits in board tender, so it's not my place to say that.
Mr. Selega, I just want to indicate we are at 7 minutes past 11
Yes.
in terms of
Correct.
pacing yourself in terms of the rest of
Thank you,
questions.
Chair. Thank you, Chair. I'm also keeping my eye on the clock. Yeah, but you are saying you are not involved in this, but your sentence carries on, the paragraph carries on to say, I'm happy to get involved to assist with this acquisition and monthly monitoring, analyzing of all investments from today. I can meet anyone you require. If you need me in India, Dubai to discuss, I'll meet you there.
Yes, Chair. I'm happy to get involved in terms of the investment committee, to get involved in this transaction, to understand it and anything. Maybe there's more information they want to give me. This must be a huge acquisition for any company that's coming in. So I was happy to get involved and assist in that sense for my corporate finance skills.
Sorry,
Take us
Chair,
to-
no, just in fairness, just to speed things along. In fairness to the witness, and just to point out Mr. Seleka, the previous statement that he wasn't involved and couldn't become involved related to his position at Eskom. So it's not fair to say that there's a contradiction in the next sentence. You can just ask the witness to explain. But anyway, the witness has done it. Thank you.
Mr. Selega?
I think he does say the witness has explained.
Sorry, Mr. Seleka, if you're asking me that I could assist internally within Eskom and get this withdrawn, resolved, or whatever, no. It doesn't involve me, it doesn't sit in my committees, it sits in board tender. Remember, this is a huge public outcry that's happened in August. You know, it's a big thing. And second of all, well, I thought, but there's all red tape within Eskom, there's all internal controls, there's procedures. As all your witnesses have told you, you've got to go up and you've got to prepare the documents. So it was never in my mind that, or could I ever assist, I could never assist any of the Guptas to get that fine withdrawn. It was never my wording. If that's what you're asking, Chair.
Sorry. No, well, I put a statement to you just to comment on...
Sorry.
Yeah,
No, that was never my intention. I was involved with the investment committee to
Yeah.
be formed. I'd assist with that perspective.
yeah. Let's go to the next email, the other email.
Yes. So, Chair, this other email comes, it was publicly announced, this transaction. So again, I'm not involved in this transaction, I never have been. What I gained was from the press. Mr. Gupta never replied to any emails except this one. There's nothing untoward about me congratulating him. I strongly believe that this group was growing a huge resource company. You had us who had the gold and uranium, and we just purchased in a Brackfontein. They purchased in Optimum Coal. You know, I think this group is going to be a huge resource group. I don't know what's going on in there. So I'm sending a congratulation email to him based on what I saw in the press.
Yes, and let's see that
Let's go to it.
congratulations.
Mr. Pamensky, please, just wait for the questions.
I'm sorry.
Yes, let's continue.
Yes. So the email reads, that on page 718, Eskom bundle 17. I believe Mr. Pamensky is the bottom one, eh?
That is correct, Chair.
On 10 December 2015 at 22:32, it's from yourself. It's an email to who? It's not apparent here.
It would be the chairman, Mr. Atul Gupta.
Okay. So, hi, Chair, congratulations. The chairman of?
I'm saying Chair, hi, it's
Yeah,
the
he's
chair
the
of
chairman of
ORE. He's ORE's chairman.
I see. Okay, so you're communicating with him in his capacity as the chairperson of ORE.
No, I'm emailing him. Chair is how you would respect him. I'm emailing him in general to congratulate him on an acquisition. I'm not congratulating him as the chair of ORE.
Okay, no, I understand that. But did you understand my question? Are you communicating with him in his capacity as chairperson of ORE?
No, Chair,
Generally.
I'm giving him a general here to wish him congratulations.
Okay, thanks. You say, hi, Chair, congratulations, Mazel Tov. That's congratulations, isn't it?
Yes, it's a Jewish word for mazel tov.
That's
Yes,
right.
sorry, Mr. Seleka, I didn't put up my hands like you thought.
Oh, you
Sorry,
didn't?
Chair. There was no board meeting. I'm sending an email. I know nothing's wrong. Yes. I really think it's a gent, but let's go. Sorry.
There's on a brilliant and well thought out, planned and strategized acquisition of the optimum group of companies. Well done. I'm proud of you all. That's where it sounds like you're putting a fist in the air. This is only the beginning of a resources group growth and many more to come into play. So this is the very deal we are talking about, Tegeta acquiring OCM. Ultimately it became OCH that they acquired. And you are congratulating them for that. This is on the 10th of December 2015. That's the same date that they signed the agreement, which had suspensive conditions. So you knew about that?
No, what I knew was from the press. I knew nothing. Everything I gained was from the press.
So what did you know from the press?
The press said that they'd done a transaction. I think it was the business rescue practitioners put out a press release. So that's what I knew from it.
So you didn't know from Mr. Atul himself?
No, no one informed me. No one replied to my emails. I was not involved. I've never been involved in this transaction.
Yeah, no.
Fortunately enough.
Okay. Yes, the BTC 659 prepayment, you were not involved as well?
No, I was not involved.
You didn't serve on BTC?
No, as I said to you before, I also recused myself with anything coal or coal procurement related.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying you didn't serve
Oh,
on
no, I
BTC.
never served on BTC.
Yeah,
And I was unaware of it.
Yeah. That's fine. So Chair, I'm trying to finalize this. So you know from the fact, I don't know whether you know, but the evidence that has cropped up from the public protector, from the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee, and here before the Commission, that decisions that were being made by Eskom, and in particular in regard to the submissions that were made to the board, one to the board and the other to the BTC, for these prepayments that were meant to go to Tegeta, seem to have been made in order to assist Tegeta in acquiring OCH, OCM. I accept that you did not take part in the vote, in the decision-making in December 2015. I'm just saying to you that the evidence as it emerges appears to point to an effort on the part of Eskom to assist Tegeta in the acquisition of OCH financially. You think you have any comment on that?
I can't speculate, Chair. That's unfortunately your role. I can't speculate. I've been watching, but I can't speculate, Chair. Yeah. I can only say I'm not involved in those transactions.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Pamensky. You've dealt also with this issue in your affidavit of the cooperation agreement. I mean, you did mention it as you were talking about this transaction.
Sorry, Chair.
Yeah.
I've never known about the cooperation agreement. It's never been mentioned to us. All that we are aware is the fourth addendum.
The fourth addendum.
That's
yes.
better. Yeah, sorry.
No, that's fine for that correction. Because the other board members have mentioned the cooperation agreement or the negotiation process that was ongoing at the time when Mr. Molefe comes to Eskom. To cut a long story short, that matter comes to the board on the 23rd of April 2016. No, 2015.
23rd, 2015, correct.
2015. And we heard evidence that the board was met in Cape Town and that this was a more of an informal meeting. Can you recall that?
Can I stop you there? This was certainly not an informal meeting. I heard it yesterday.
Yeah.
I already looked at the minutes again. You can see there's three topics there. You have the corporate plan. So you have to have the management and that all there. I thought it would be impossible. You had also the war room. The people who were engaged in the war room were management, not the board. We weren't involved. And I even went a step further, Chair, if you don't mind.
Chair, this will come as a revelation to me too. Whether it's in the bundle or not, we'll all find out right.
So yesterday I heard it was an informal.
Sometimes you get something like this and you get very useful information.
Yes, and we're here seeking the truth, so I've got no difficulty. But Mr. Pamensky, is this in the bundle?
No, it's not, but I'll just tell you now I did it this morning. So to let you know straight away is, yes, I heard yesterday it was an informal, it's impossible. I re-looked at the minutes, there's resolutions, there's everything. And then I looked at the email from the company secretary, Wayne Fenter, to determine the board meeting, and you can see everyone's on it, all the executives and everything to that extent. So they would have had to be there to present, who was going to present to us. So I went to look at that. So it was definitely not an informal board meeting, sorry.
You say you looked at the minutes, you saw that none of the executives' names is on them.
No, there are. If you go look in the executives, when you go look at it.
Mr. Singh is there, Mr.
No, Mr. Singh's not at that time.
Right. No, is it?
No, this is 2015, 23rd of April 2015.
Yes.
Mr. Singh's not there.
Yeah, no, correct, you're right.
But if you look in the minutes, there's the GE4 generation is talking to us.
Yes.
So they must have been there. No one's going to talk to us about and make decisions without management. That's the only people who are going to give us the information.
Yes, but we're talking now in respect of the issue of the addendum. The addendum, that gets to be referred to Mr. Molefe.
Oh, yes.
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 You see, you're talking too much.
Apologies. Sorry.
So, that matter gets to be referred to Mr. Molefe.
That's correct.
You have explained in your affidavit, you don't know who asked for it to be referred to Mr. Molefe.
That's correct.
Yeah, because he was fairly new there. Why do you think it was referred to him and not to the team that was negotiating the matter?
Well, first of all, Chair, you always, from the board, go through the CEO. You don't speak, as my understanding, when you go to you speak through the CEO, and the CEO goes and resolves it. So the CEO will go and speak to the P department, whoever he needs to gather that information. You don't go, as my experience is, you don't go instruct the other managers. You go to the CE, and the CE deals with it down.
You speak to the leader. You speak to the leader.
Yes, you speak to the leader. Correct, and he handles it down, Chair.
Yeah.
And it was also, just to let you know, Mr. Zola Totsi was very formal at the beginning when we first joined and said, all communication must go through him and the CEO, because that's the protocol within this organization.
Yeah, okay. So from your point of view, it was not an issue relating to the negotiating team or the executive not being able to answer questions that the board had. It was not about that. Do you understand my question?
Can you just rephrase your question to me? Are you saying to me, sorry, that we referred it to Mr. Molefe regardless?
No,
Sorry.
no. I'm saying, from your point of view, the referral of the matter to Mr. Molefe was not because the negotiating team or the executives involved in the negotiations were unable to answer questions which the board had. From your point of view was, well, here we have a leader, let's refer it to him.
No, Chair. The truth of the matter is I can't really remember that meeting, so I can't go and tell you that perspective.
That's fine. And I see from your affidavit that you clearly say the board did not,
Accept or reject.
That's right. Did not accept or reject, approve or disapprove. It simply refers the matter to Molefe. And it referred to him with the understanding that he will come back. Is that your understanding?
That is my understanding.
Yeah. You heard the other board members said he didn't come back. They picked up this either in some report in September, or by that time he had already terminated the negotiations. What's your recollection? Did he come back?
No, Chair, my recollection was this. I think I explained it to you earlier. My recollection from our side was we had a board meeting set. I then got an email to say the board meeting has been postponed. And it was there that I was noticing on the press with Glencore the month before. I wanted to find out what's happening. You know, what's going on. Anyway, I wrote in the email, can someone please tell us what's going on, you know? What's the delegation of authority say? You know, at least tell us, let us know what's going on. There was no response to that, and I think the date would have been for me when Mr. Molefe filled me in when he said it was not in the best interest and unaffordable, and it does accord with my initial impressions. would have been the 10th or 11th of September because we were on board breakaway, and I don't interact with the CE. You don't phone him, and you don't have that relationship, you know?
Yeah. Is the chairperson able to hear? You're able to hear, Mr. Paminsky, chairperson?
I'm hearing it.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Right. Mr. Paminsky, did you, prior to you hearing from the media, when was that? When you heard and then you sent an email?
At the beginning of August was a lot of this going on.
Yes.
And then our board meeting was set, I think, for the 14th or 18th of September, and on the 27th,
Yes.
we got a notification to say the board meeting is going to be postponed.
Yes. So when do you make your inquiry about what you hear in the media?
I do my inquiry in that email. I wanted to speak to the board
In September.
in September.
Okay, I see. Well, because my question, like I did all the board members, is when you refer the matter to Mr. Molefe on the 23rd of April, 2015, which is a matter of significant importance, it would appear, did you follow up with him? Because he's given an assignment, go get information and come back, report back to the board, give us feedback, because we have neither rejected nor approved this thing. Does the board make a follow-up with him?
Chair, I can't talk to the board, but I made the follow-up. You know, the next time our quarterly board meetings come, would be the quarterly board meeting was one in May, and then there was one in September. So the first time he came back, I saw in the press is when I asked. But also, to your question, Mr. Seleki,
Yes.
you know, if there's a problem with coal or the supply, management would come to us in that sense. But to answer your question, yes, I did ask.
Yeah, but we couldn't find anything to show that any board member made inquiries before Mr. Molefe terminated this cooperation.
Oh, yes, none of us knew the transaction. Oh, none of us, we weren't involved. We didn't know. I found out from the press what transpired. We didn't know that he had terminated whatever these negotiations were. We were unaware.
Yeah, because my question was in relation to that, whether there was any follow-up with him from the part of the board prior to him terminating.
Oh, no.
No, okay. Thank you. Chair, I think I've exhausted this part. The suspension issues are a little bit longer, but I would have liked to summarize them with Mr. Paminsky, except that I know that time is not necessarily on our side.
You can still have about 15 minutes before we might need to adjourn.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Yes. Mr. Paminsky, quickly on the suspensions. Just a few points there, Mr. Paminsky. And you deal with it in your affidavit. Maybe I should turn to that affidavit so that if you need to make reference to anything in your affidavit, you could do so, if you want. You will provide us with a copy of that document you read from in due course. The one you pulled out from your bag.
Yes, I just handed it to you. I'll give you a copy as well.
Okay. So, quickly on the suspensions, I think you deal with them. You deal with that from page 375 of your affidavit onwards. But this is the evidence before the Commission. On the 9th of March 2015, well, there's a cancellation of a meeting on the 26th of February, a scheduled board meeting, and you complained about it. On the 9th of March, a meeting is convened. 9 March 2015 by Mr. Tsotsi, by email of the evening before, the 8th of March. He had been on that day, the 8th of March, which is a Sunday, he had been at a meeting with the president in Durban. And he comes to the meeting on the 9th. I think you joined the meeting by telephone. You were not there in person. And a discussion unfolded about what Mr. Tsotsi says was his meeting with the president and what the president requires of the board to do. In that meeting, about that meeting, we have had some, I think the board members are unable to recollect or whatever the position is, but some have given various versions about what transpired in that meeting. I've seen in your affidavit, and I want to ask you the question so you can tell the chairperson. Other than the inquiry, the request for an inquiry, did the board members discuss the issue of suspensions on the 9th of March?
No, we did not.
We did not. Thank you, Mr.
I
Paminsky.
think almost all the witnesses, Mr. Slega, have said that, isn't it? That on the 9th, there was no discussion on the suspension because some of the executives were in that meeting.
Yes, I've had to put that to them, Chair. When we get it from the executive said they were there and they didn't discuss the suspension. How can they discuss the suspensions of themselves?
Yes, the point
But
I'm making is, don't you want to go to points where there seems to be
Yes,
disputes on the issue of suspensions? Because with regard to whether the suspensions were discussed at the meeting of the 9th, my recollection is that
yeah, the evidence.
nobody says they were discussed.
Yes. No, Chair, we have overcome that hurdle. You are correct.
Okay.
Because they were saying, some of them,
Oh.
the suspensions were discussed in
Okay,
misdemeanors.
okay.
Yeah. And then comes the meeting of the 11th, sorry, Mr. Paminsky, 11 March 2015, where the minister is present. And the minister, again, as I've seen from your affidavit.
Can I put this question to him while you are looking at your question?
Yes.
I've looked at your affidavit, Mr. Paminsky. One of the things that you don't say in your affidavit, which some of the board members have said, is that in that meeting between the minister and the board on that day, that morning, the minister did specify the portfolios whose heads would need to be suspended. Now, I'm saying would need to be suspended, but a number of the board members have said, the minister said, I'm not instructing, I can't instruct the board as to suspend. But for example, I think Mr. Koza made it clear that it was quite implied that that's what she wanted. So do you recall that or do you not recall that?
Chair, my recollection is she mentioned the 4 areas.
Yes.
And she mentioned the 4 areas which were affected within the 4 departments.
Yes.
I don't remember her
Yeah.
specifically, but I remember something very clearly in my head. I will not protect them.
Yes.
So in my mind it was a moot point because we had to decide on the suspensions.
Yes.
But in my mind, exactly what I said to you was we had a support. But I can tell you now, the seed or the first time that the principle of the 4 executives to, we shouldn't have a problem with us putting them to step aside, if you want to put it, was in that meeting. That's where it came alive.
Yes. And one of the things that has been said, or that has emerged, is that apart from Mr. Tsotsi, who had been to the Durban meeting on the 8th, where this issue of the suspension of the executives came up, as well as the issue of an inquiry. Apart from him, it doesn't appear that officially any board member knew about the idea of the suspension of executives until the minister raised it.
That is correct, Chair?
That is correct, yes.
That is correct, Chair.
Obviously, there may or may not have been some board members who might have known unofficially, but in terms of what I've heard, that's when this idea was of a suspension or stepping aside was mentioned for the first time to the board.
That is correct.
And when later on, after the minister had left, Mr. Tsotsi spoke, he also spoke obviously about the suspension, but everybody knew what the minister had said, and of course, he was telling the board also about what he had heard at the Durban meeting. He might not have said there was a Durban meeting, but he clearly was talking about interactions involving the presidency and so on. Is that right?
No, Chair.
Yeah, Mr. Tsotsi.
No, Chair. The only time he mentioned the presidency was on the meeting of the 9th. He said clearly that, A, he drafted this submission.
Yes.
He'd seen the president 3 times as recently as yesterday.
Yes.
And the president has instructed him and us to do an inquiry.
Okay. Are you saying on the 11th he didn't refer to his interactions with the presidency in relation to the inquiry and the suspensions?
No. On the 11th,
Yeah.
it started off the meeting where he was clear he was pushing for 4.
Yeah.
He explained misdemeanors of 3. I don't recall the misdemeanors of 3.
Mm-hmm.
We as a board pushed back. What was told in that meeting was, Mr. Tsotsi told us that that the presidency had been working on this for months, and he was given a thick report like this. It's in a thick report like this that covered all the bases and all of that, and he had obtained a legal opinion that the executives could lawfully be suspended. He didn't mention anything about the talk in Durban or anything, Chair.
What about the evidence that I've heard, I think from Mr. Tsotsi and from other board members, I think Dr. Ngubane is one of them, that the discussion by the board of the suspensions of the executives was on the basis that the suspensions were not linked to any allegations of misconduct. That the idea was simply to say, we are not making any allegations against the executives, allegations of misconduct, but we are simply saying, in order for the inquiry or the investigation to proceed smoothly, we would like them to be suspended or to step aside. Do you remember that discussion?
Yes, Chair. I think that was at the meeting I was at. Remember, I left at 1:30 and we only agreed 3 resignations, not 4. Sorry, could you repeat your question?
Yes. Do you remember the discussion?
Yes, sorry, sir, you're right.
Hang on,
The
yeah.
idea was to let them step aside without any charges or looking for wrongdoing. That was it. It was to step aside so they don't impede or slow this investigation down.
Yes, yes. Now, against that background, to the extent that, as I recall, but Mr. Selega might correct me, as I recall, Mr. Tsotsi seems to have denied having told the board about misdemeanors of executives to support suspension. Mr. Selega, is that correct?
Yes, he has denied
He has denied that.
giving them a list of misdemeanors.
Can I answer that, Chair?
No, before you say, you are not the only one. You are not the only board member who says he told the board about allegations of misconduct by some of the executives, or all of them, I'm not sure. But I'm wondering why he would talk about that if the understanding was that the suspensions were not going to be based on allegations of misconduct. Do you want to comment on that?
Sorry, Chair, I don't think I fully understand that question, because what I'm thinking is Mr.
Let me say, I'm saying you and some of the board members, maybe all of them, those that have testified, have said that Mr. Tsotsi did tell the board members about allegations of misconduct on the part of some, at least, I don't know whether
Three.
all, some, yeah, of the executives that were sought to be suspended. So my question is, I wonder why he would be telling the board members about allegations of misconduct in circumstances where it was understood within the board that the suspensions were not going to be based on allegations of misconduct.
May I answer that, Chair? He first started off pushing for suspension with charges. Mr. Beloy, as I recall, was quite against it. So he came in with the concept to push for charges, you know, and the board members felt there was not sufficient information to do charges, would rather step aside at that point in time. I just want to answer you one last question, Chair. Sorry, and I don't want to take your time. On the meeting of the 19th, if we didn't have this recording, I think we would all be in trouble here. In that recording, it's clear as daylight what I put down there, that he admitted to all these items in black and white. It's in the recording, so you can't deny it. Thank you, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, yeah.
There might be room for one
or two.
question.
Yeah, talking about that, Mr. Paminsky, admissions or concessions are not in relation to the charges that he alleged misdemeanors. I've seen what you set out in your affidavit. One is that Mr. Tsotsi told us that the president had the report, that investigation, and that there was a report about misdemeanors, but he didn't produce that report. You recall that? That's page 389.
Yes, sir.
389 of your affidavit, of the bundle, where you're dealing with the removal of Mr. Tsotsi, and he admitted to having erred by not properly introducing Mr. Linnell to the board. Yeah, that's one of the reasons. He did say that, you're right, but we know that from the evidence of, and in particular Ms. Klein said, we did embrace Mr. Linnell, we didn't reject him. And not Mr., but Dr. Ngubane said, look, Mr. Linnell, we are contracting with you. And after that, after the meeting of the 11th, whichever last meeting it was, Mr. Linnell received invitation to assist the Audit and Risk Committee and the new build and program of Dr. Pat Nigel. So the board did even invite him after the 11th of March.
Chair, I can't comment on that. I'm not aware of any of those meetings. Yeah. First, I'm coming to aware of all of this is on the 19th, where he admits to me on the 19th he didn't follow procurement. He admits that he engaged Nick Linnell without properly introducing to us. He told us in that meeting for the first time this man was given by the president. We didn't know. We felt it was imposed on us. I think people were quite upset. And he also admitted to engage in the services of Mr. Nick Linnell without the board approval. So it's there, he admitted to it. But I don't know those meetings before, sorry.
Yeah, so...
Okay.
Yeah, that's...
I think we've run out of time for today,
Yes.
but I think it's going to be important for Mr. Paminsky to come back.
Indeed. Can we arrange it again mutually?
Yeah.
Yeah, because there are matters that I think he feels strongly about in terms of certain versions
Yes.
that need to be canvassed.
Yes.
Indeed.
What I would like you to do, Mr. Paminsky, in the meantime, also is to look at what I have put to some of the board members, including Ms. Naidu yesterday, when I was saying...
I was hoping to do that today, Chair. I've got it all written down. I've got a point for you and all of that.
You are ready?
I'm ready, Chair.
Okay, all right. So if before you come back, if you could put what you wanted to put to say in relation to that in a supplementary affidavit or an affidavit, that would be helpful. But when you come back, it doesn't mean I won't give you a chance to
Chair.
say it.
Chair, if I may, Chair, I hear your request, but if you look at my affidavit, I think it covers it.
Oh,
I think
if it
it's for me.
covers, that's fine.
Yes, I think it's for me to speak to you each level, to say, listen, Chair, I could not be involved a while.
Yes.
I'm not involved here. I'm not involved here.
Then-
I'd love to give you that
No,
opportunity.
if it's covered in the affidavit, you don't have to do another affidavit. Then when you come back, you can deal with it. What I didn't mention to Ms. Naidu, which I forgot to mention, is also how Mr. Tsotsi was kicked out. I say kicked out, but I know that in the end he resigned, but I think it's quite clear that he resigned because the board didn't want him anymore, you know. Looking at the charges, you may or may not have heard the questions that we have put to other board members about the charges. I can say to you that I have difficulty with, I think, almost all the three charges.
Yes. Chair, the problem I have with it,
So if
I can't answer you. It was left to P&G and the lawyers drafted it, so I can't answer you on that question, unfortunately.
Yes, no, that's fine, but when you deal with the question that I put to, the picture that I put to Ms. Naidu, all I'm saying is that I didn't factor in how Mr. Tsotsi was kicked out, but it's part of that
Understood.
picture. You might say, on that part, I have no comment, but on the other parts of the picture, I'm able to comment, and this is my comment, and you will do that when you come back.
Chair, I just want to say two things quickly before you leave.
Yeah.
Number one, yes, what you were saying was the enabler to come into the business, to allow these people to come in, and then the transaction. So that's what you were asking for. I can do the enabler. Number two, I just want to thank you for this opportunity, Chair. I've waited 5 years to explain these emails. I've been lambasted. I've been kicked out of the Jewish community, let them hear, on these emails. People think I was involved in this transaction. I've never been involved in this transaction. So at least I had my chance to come forward and tell it all today. And I think it's in that supplementary that you've got. So for me, it's a big, big thank you from my side.
No, that's fine, but the real point that I was talking about, you will deal with the issue of the transaction, but what I was really talking about in terms of the picture I put to Ms.
Yes,
Naidu is the one of saying it looks like there may have been people from outside of Eskom who were influencing what the board was doing and what some officials within the board were doing.
Yes, Chair.
So if you can listen again to that part of the questions, and then to the extent that you are able to, when you come back, you can deal with it.
I look forward to deal with it, Chair.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Chair, we'll also assist in that regard. I haven't been following this like as a running brief. I think Mr. Pamensky would be complaining about insolvency if I was on a daily basis following all the evidence in the commission. But we will get the record of the matters that you've referred to.
Yes, you should.
And we'll either, if it hasn't been covered by the affidavit, we'll consider with Mr. Seleka's consent dealing with it on affidavit in a short supplementary, or we'll deal with it already.
Yes.
But we'll assist in that regard. Chair, might I just say another thing before the irrepressible Mr. Pamensky says something else? Is in relation to the Melrose Arch question. I think we will engage with the Commissioner's investigators directly and Mr. Seleka. I don't believe it's a sort of matter that has to be on the record, given the type of investigation that you wish to clarify in that regard. I think it's probably best simply supplied.
Oh, you said in relation to?
Into the Melrose Arch address. I don't think it should be necessarily on the record. I think it should be given to we can put on the record if you wish, but we'll give those details directly to the investigators, because it might be that they want to use it for purposes before it becomes public.
No. I think you are right. Yeah. You'll deal with Mr. Seleka, and then we'll take it from there. No, I think you are right.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, we are going to adjourn for now. We have to adjourn because I've got another commitment, so we won't be able to sit for the rest of the day. I apologize to all concerned for any inconvenience. Tomorrow also we won't be able to start at 10 as normal, but as soon as my commitment is over, I will rush back to the hearing, and we should be able to start at about 1 o'clock. So those who will be involved, I hope they are listening who are not here. They should have their lunch between 12 and 1.
Mother, just confirm that we aren't on the agenda for tomorrow.
No.
Thank you.
So we'll probably start around 1 o'clock, and I will sit in up to about 4 or 5 or thereabouts. Okay, thank you very much to everybody for
Thank
their
you, Chair. Thank you,
cooperation.
Advocate.
Thank you, Chair.
We adjourn.
Thank you.